Assalamu alaikum. Today, inshallah, we will share with you what I refer to as the top 10 competencies that result from observing the prescribed fasting of the month of Ramadan. What we're going to talk today about is how we expect that Ramadan affects those who truly practice the true intention of Ramadan. With that being said, I would like to share with you a comment made by Imam Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, who died in 1111 Common Era, made a beautiful statement about Ramadan. He referred to Ramadan as the intersection or the meeting point between Sharia, which he refers to as the law, and Tariqah, which is the discipline or the way, which is the spiritual self-development practices that are afforded by Ramadan. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us this beautiful practice, unique to the Muslim people, unique to the followers and adherents of Islam. And we follow it by and large, alhamdulillah, in most Muslim countries. So let's start with the top 10 competencies that we should have developed on a personal level as a result of practicing Ramadan or practicing the fasting during the month of Ramadan. Number 1, restraining the carnal lust. Now, this is an indication of how we learn during the month of Ramadan to control the physical needs. So instead of feeling subject to one's physical desires, in other words, paying attention to hunger pains and thirst and physical tiredness and all of these feelings, physical feelings that may distract us during the day, we learn to quit paying attention to these things and to pay attention to another aspect. So we end up practicing the ultimate struggle, but it's a struggle against oneself, against one's tendencies, especially the physical tendencies. So it is, if you want, mind over matter. It is the ability to prove to yourself that you are stronger than your physical being, your physical drives, your physical needs. And that's the first benefit or the first competency, personal competency, that you develop as a result of practicing prescribed fasting during the month of Ramadan. Number 2, discarding and emptying useless legacy notions before relearning and retooling to be ready for a better future. So what is this? In essence, the concept of emptying one's physical body, getting rid of a lot of the leftovers that were left during the previous 11 months, teaches us to stop being unregimented and self-possessed. In other words, just focused on what's in us and what we contain inside of us, literally, physically. Getting rid of these things makes room for new stuff. As we say, by the end of the month of Ramadan, we should be ready with a cup that's ready to receive. We have emptied a lot of what we used to have, and now our cup is ready to receive. As you know, a full cup cannot receive any new water, any new source of sustenance. An empty cup is ready to receive, or even a partially empty cup. Number 3, delayed gratification. This personal competency is critically important. So basically, the end of Ramadan is the end of being insistent and needy and dire and now, quick, everything I need it now. Ending that phase or ending that type of practice and that behavior and moving to a new behavior where we appreciate that some solutions come with time, some solutions come with patience, some good things come to those who wait. As you know, there's a famous psychological test for 5-year-old which determines whether or not these 5-year-old will be actually successful through the rest of their life. They give the 5-year-old child, they put him in a room on a table and they give him one cookie and they tell him, you can have that cookie now, or if you wait 5 minutes, I'm gonna go out and come back, and by the time I come back, if that cookie is there, you will get 2 cookies. That single test determines more than anything the quality and the success that that person will enjoy for the rest of his life. Ramadan gives us that competency, teaches us to practice it on a regular basis. Of course, if you practice it only that in Ramadan, that's good. But if you practice it throughout the year, like 3 days in a month or 2 days every week, as the Prophet ﷺ used to do, that would be even better. Number 4, owning one's self-development practice or process or discipline. In other words, making sure that you focus on your own self-development. And that basically means that the end of Ramadan is the end of being slave to one's own old habits. Getting rid of these old habits and reforming new habits and practicing new self-determined habits to help us change deliberately how we want to behave for the rest of our lives. Examples of the new habits are enforced by changes in the schedule, changes in the feeding patterns, or changes in the quality of the food that we enjoy or that we use to sustain ourselves during Ramadan. Number 5, personal competency that comes with the end of Ramadan, inshallah, to those who practiced correctly the prescribed fasting during the month of Ramadan, is the devotion to God and the empathy to His creatures, all creatures, people and animals and other creatures. So basically, the end of Ramadan should bring the end of being self-centered, of being arrogant, of being narcissistic, of being self-possessed, just focusing on oneself, and learning a new beginning to present oneself to serve God and to serve His creatures, His creation in general. Number 6, harmonizing the physical senses with the imperceptible reality, what's called ghaib. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us about ghaib in the Quran, believing in ghaib or appreciating the imperceptible. With the month of Ramadan coming to its end, I hope we focus on ending the insistence or the focus or the exclusivity on focusing on materialistic observations and physical senses, to also harmonize and balance and appreciate with these physical senses the senses that teach us to perceive the intangible. So in other words, the end of Ramadan should bring us the competency of balancing the tangible with the intangible. The world is full of both. It's not just about the tangible. We should also learn to appreciate the intangible, the things that cannot be measured, that cannot be just watched and observed using regular physical senses. Number 7 is practicing unobservable abstinence. What do I mean by that? With the fasting in Ramadan, we abstain from food, we abstain from drinks, we abstain from physical relationship during the day hours. And that abstinence is not observable. You cannot watch somebody regularly walking in the street and determine if he is abstaining or not abstaining. What does that teach us? Hopefully with the end of Ramadan, we will remember that we should forego to seek acclaim and recognition and approval from other people, moving away from affirmation addiction and being attached to the opinions and the approval of impermanent creatures, to the approval and the satisfaction and the pleasure of the permanent creator of all creation. The number 8 personal competency that we should have acquired by the end of Ramadan is practicing generosity with one's wealth and possessions. In other words, recognizing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who owns all of the wealth and all of the possessions that we are allowed to peruse during our life, and therefore appreciating that the wealth and the possessions that are within our control really belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And therefore those who practice generosity during the month of Ramadan return to the belief or to the concept or to the practice that these possessions and this wealth really belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number 9, practicing generosity with one's time, one's personal time. Why is that important? Because there are times where we live throughout our lives where we live with the Western modern type of notion that we need to be efficient with our time, we need to be not wasteful with our time, and this is all well and good. But at the same time, our time itself does not belong to us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us the time and gave us the ability to use this time, and therefore some of this time must be returned to serve those created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those who are less fortunate than us, less capable than us. So we may spend the time teaching or training or helping others with their self-development, All of those things are lessons that we should learn by the end of the month of Ramadan. And finally, number 10, and perhaps the most important competency that we should learn by the end of the month of Ramadan. That competency is to willingly surrender one's criteria for determining what's allowed and what's not allowed, what's good and what's bad. Surrendering that criteria, that decision, that determination back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the end of the month of Ramadan should help us end our dependency on rationality, on demanding a rational explanation for every practice and every decision and every determination in Sharia. Yes, in this channel we teach that we should seek certainty, but after we receive certainty that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator and the Quran is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then we surrender our own self-determination, our own will, our own decisions, our own rationality. We surrender that rationality and remand that determination to the owner of all of those things. So in other words, during the day, water and food is not allowed. It is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said they are not allowed. During the time outside the month of Ramadan, the same cup of water, the same type of food are allowed. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching us that His determination is what counts. Submitting my will and my wishes to the demands or the determination of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is perhaps one of the most important personal competency that inshallah we will take with us with the end of the month of Ramadan. I hope this was helpful to you, and I hope inshallah that you will reach the end of Ramadan and you will keep all of these personal competencies and use them throughout your life. Thank you for watching.